Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to an introduction to Raising Attainment with Wellbeing, a new course designed to try and get under the skin of school improvement today. When we advertised it, we wanted to describe something about new paradigms which might be required to empower the next wave of school improvement. We really want to focus in on what's happening in the internal world of the learner. And when that's conflicted, learning can be problematic. We want to also look at those children who have hidden barriers to learning, like trauma, like dyslexia, like dyspraxis. Some of those hidden barriers to learning that you simply cannot detect sometimes. So we're going to look at new ways of systematically removing these barriers to learning by looking at neuroscience, looking at the social and emotional aspects of learning, cognition and metacognition, how to transform the culture and climate of a classroom. And finally, looking at some of the latest assistive technologies that, if used in mainstream classes as commonplace as using a pen and pencil, could actually remove one of the big systemic barriers to progress. That's what we hope to do. Going to look at the programme through three lenses. First of all, a quick overview of the social and emotional state of school communities today. We're going to look at this new paradigm that we're trying to introduce. We'll then introduce the course and describe some of the practical delivery thoughts behind the process. First of all, look at the social and emotional state of school communities today. Now, let's first of all start with the definition of well-being. If you try and Google well-being, just looking at the range of answers could make you ill. So for want of making a clear statement about what we mean by well-being in schools, it's simply this: the social and emotional conditions that enable a school community to thrive. Okay, the social and emotional conditions that enable a school community to thrive. This is what we mean by well-being. Now, the advances in brain science that have occurred over the last 20 years have made it utterly clear there is a neurobiology of learning. And it is absolutely clear also, due to the internal conflicts that can happen, an anxious, angry, and or frightened mind will simply not learn effectively, however outstanding the teaching of content or concepts is. It is quite a parlous state when you reflect on the fact that in March this year, there were over nearly 91,000 referrals to mental health services, CAMS, child and adolescent mental health services, in 1 month, the highest monthly figure where records were available. I also, and I hope you probably recognize this too, it's probably the tip of the iceberg. We have the lasting impact of the COVID pandemic. We have the inflation pressures that are hitting families, and let's make no assumption that children are somehow immune from the pressure that their families and their parents are under. Food poverty, energy bills. I cannot see the next 2 or 3 years being any better than they are now. If anything, it could get worse. Anxiety can come from other areas. The latest figures from the British Dyslexia Association suggests that well over 70% of learners with dyslexia go unnoticed in schools. We will come back to that in a moment. And let us not forget the impact this is having on our workforce and our leaders. If we're talking about social and emotional well-being, it has to be a community perspective. Okay, let's move the conversation on to the who's. Why do we think we need a new paradigm to address this advantage? Okay, so let's start off with the who question. And I love to introduce this picture. I was fortunate enough to lead an assistive technologies pilot with 80 schools, DFE funded, early in the year, which brought some of the assistive technologies into the classroom. And here is a picture of Joanna. She has a detailed EHCP plan in secondary school. And this is her enjoying independent use of immersive reader for the first time in her lessons. And I hope you can see a smile behind the mask. We have to somehow challenge an abiding assumption which seems to underlie a lot of schools, certainly schools that stream and set and teachers that are comfortable in this way. We have to actually challenge a belief that academic performance is somehow related to intelligence. Now, look, we're challenging unconscious bias now when it comes to race. How about challenging unconscious bias when it comes to ability? Now, we have a track record of challenge, and that is through our SEN support and EHCP plans. We know that if we get the provision right for young people with identified needs, we can help them make progress. There should be no limit placed on ability and achievement. There is another group of young people in our schools today who might have what we call hidden or unidentified needs. I think our understanding of neurodiversity is growing. So this includes, of course, those young people with dyslexia who might have a spiky profile, and so they may be high performing. But if their dyslexia is supported, that achievement could go through the roof. In one of our 80 pilots, a young lady, 12 weeks away from her A-levels, performing well, but some of the teachers thought she was a bit lazy and wasn't working hard enough. 12 weeks before her A-levels, she was first diagnosed with quite profound dyslexia. That's just one example. And let us not forget at all about the impact of poverty, of adverse childhood experiences, of children who are affected hugely by migration, refugees, migrants. That there are cohorts of young people who have these hidden barriers to learning. And I think we also have to accept that sometimes it's conflated. So there's additional needs conflated by poverty, conflated by ACEs, conflated by CAM. Some young people are triple jeopardized. And I think the evidence is pretty clear from the FFT themselves. They disaggregated Key Stage 4 attainment according to the amount of time a young person was on free school meals. And if a young person was on free school meals for almost the entirety of their school life, that is a performance trait. It's actually been falling. So what we probably need is some sort of new uniting paradigm so that we can express what can happen in a way that unlocks achievement for schools and makes it accessible, makes it understandable, buys the staff in to this debate. And so what we've done at Microlink is develop a thesis. We've developed a thesis by extending something called the social model of disability to embrace every child, what we call disabled by circumstance. Now, we are in contested space here because sometimes some individuals within the SEND lobby like to own the language, but I think this is a brilliant model because the social model of disability places the onus on society, on culture, on climate to overcome the impairment or the disability. The child or the adult is not incumbent with their disability. That's what the social model suggests. So why don't we generalize that out? I think another diagram, cartoon, which I think I love, is this one. And a journey. Schools have moved from kind of equality to embracing a degree of equity. In other words, some young people need more help than others. But there's a third level. can we take the barrier away completely? Can we remove a systemic barrier to progress? And I'm going to use the example from our assistive technology pilot. Now, equality could be, let's give every child in the class an iPad to support their learning. Wonderful. Equity could be, let's give children with identified special educational needs access to assistive technologies on their iPad. And aren't we being good? But there is another level, and this is the one we were exploring through our AT pilot, and that was creating an environment, a culture, and a classroom practice that empowers the use of assistive technologies so that every child disabled by circumstance, whether it's known or not, can access the quality teaching. We are removing a systemic barrier by making assistive technologies as commonplace as the use of a pen and a pencil. Why? Because I believe fundamentally our children deserve nothing less. If we embrace the social model and take on the responsibility that is a society that disables a person, we can then look to remove those barriers to lifelong learning and achievement and equip young people to go on for a successful, independent life. That's something I've learned working for Microlink that do workplace adjustments and have done workplace adjustments for the last 30 years. Okay, so here we are, raising attainment with well-being. Let me give you a little walk through the genesis of it. What inspired us? Well, myself and some of the coaches who are supporting the program used to work for Achievement for All, and as you know, the COVID pandemic and the closure of school improvement services really did for Achievement for All, and it went into administration in 2021. However, the concept for this goes back 5 years before. We stand on the shoulder of giants like Catherine Weir, who really looked at, if you like, the research base and the evidence base for promoting social and emotional well-being. And some of these things here will be common to you. We also realized 6 years ago that there were mental health issues bubbling through that could actually be a heartbreak for thousands of children. We were learning from the attachment research community. And if we look at the foundations that Catherine Weir suggested we should have, and it was around staff capacity and a whole school, if you like, identifiers that support social and emotional well-being. It really stimulated our thinking as to what sort of course we would be able to offer schools that could address this all. So the program is designed to help education settings through a comprehensive set of complementary strategies and approaches to unlock academic achievement and accelerate progress. We're looking at the social and emotional well-being and mental health of a whole education setting. We want to re-examine the relationship between behavior and behavior management. We want to look at creating a culture and practice that is trauma-informed and relationships-driven. We want to learn from the latest in neuroscience that supports neurodiverse learners through grounded cognitive and metacognitive strategies. And we also want to introduce this concept of using the advanced deployment of assistive technologies to make the next jump. You'll see something about the coaching model here and more about that in a minute. We feel this program has an impact on a wide range of young people who have various and sometimes overlapping barriers to progress. We think it will make a huge difference to all of these children. And the course is constructed into modules, and within each modules are chapters which will help move the school forward. Show taskbar, here we go. I thought I might give you a live demonstration of the platform. This is the learning platform. As you can see down the side here are some lessons, and what you're seeing here is actually the the learning that's there. Some of the design principles that have steered the design. First of all, every school is different. One size does not fit all. Every school deserves a unique look at how they operate a program, and how it can be tailored to their teachers, because every teacher is different. ITTs, NQTs, what they call them now, new career teachers, early career teachers. We need a differentiated approach to CPD so that all of these groups of staff and non-teaching staff have something that is relevant to them. Of course, every child and family is unique, and we passionately believe that we should invest in all children, find out what's great inside them, and dig in there to share the best practice. We believe fundamentally that the journey begins with nurturing a sense of belonging and a spirit of true inclusion. The neurobiology is clear. We have to overcome anxiety, anger, and some of the blocking emotions that are working there in the amygdala hijack. We need to help a school understand where poor behavior is coming from, so that schools become more attachment and trauma aware. We need to understand the true impact of cognitive disadvantage, And the other factor here is that we do not believe in the quick fix. We support a sustained journey over a year or longer. We do not believe in the one-day inset day. So, how do we tailor to schools? Well, again, I hope this interactive serves a purpose. We're looking at raising attainment with well-being. We produced a detailed needs analysis that we feel will help guide a school to identify its strengths and also identify its key areas for development. We encourage that this is a starting point. We then ask a school community where it might want to be in a year's time or 2 years' time. And by doing this forensically, we can then identify the key areas from which a school can move forward. The 5 chapters then lead to a series of groups of information. It's almost like having a drawdown of 18 or 19 separate inset days, if you believe in the inset day concept. But let's talk a little bit now about the practical delivery of professional development, because I actually do not believe that the inset day is of any use at all. And I speak from experience as a head teacher of 10 years. You cannot fire and forget school improvement. It's an old-fashioned model. Or we passionately believe in the power of coaching, the power of example, the power of analysis, and the power of sharing, modeling, dialogue, monitor. I love the learning depths as described by John West Burnham, who was one of the leading lights in London Challenge, and how you can move from shallow learning, which is where all you do is memorize and replicate things, through to deep learning and into profound learning, where the knowledge becomes wisdom, intuitive and fundamental to the identity of a person. And when someone has done true trauma-informed practice, and that trauma-informed practice becomes intuitive and fundamental to the identity of a person, then they will connect and work with even the most troubled young people. Let's see what EEF say about effective school improvement. Programs that instill insights, motivate goal-orientated behavior, develop techniques, and embed practice, they work. Interventions also work when they are aligned to the support systems that are there for the staff, the way the intervention is designed, but also tuned to school context. This is what we do. We have a series of lessons within a module, and each one of those is designed to instill insights, motivate goal-orientated behavior, develop techniques in it, and embed practice. The Raising Attainment with Wellbeing needs analysis, as I described earlier, is the heartbeat of that process of fine-tuning the program to a school's requirements. Coming off the back of the needs analysis, a school community might decide we have to prioritize certain units and put them in a certain order in order to make the changes. Because we're good in some areas, that's great, but we need to push others. The flexibility goes further. Because you can tailor this response, the training, to different groups of professionals within your school community at different times. Because every single member of staff in your school community can open their own individual learner account. You could choose to do Raising Attainment with Wellbeing as a standalone. You don't need any support. If you're confident and feeling you've got the competence to run school improvement based on the materials that are on offer, then you are welcome. But we do offer 2 levels of coaching where we would advise the coach supports, first of all, that detailed need analysis, and then maybe is the guide on the side to do bespoke training or bespoke development, or even help with evaluation as the program unfolds. And we have, of course, some prizes. We have wellbeing awards that we hope the school will treasure and celebrate as a result of completing the training. So I hope that has given you a quick run through how Raising Attainment with Wellbeing, considering these 3 different elements, can be a really powerful tool. We are absolutely delighted to say that already within a few weeks of opening the doors, we have nearly 40 schools who've registered for a start in September. And at least half of those schools want coaching support, which is absolutely wonderful. And we are already talking to a jurisdiction that wants to roll it out for all of their schools at once, and use it to power, if you like, their school improvement strategy. We want to improve the social and emotional conditions that enable a school community to thrive. So welcome to Raising Attainment with Wellbeing.